Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we're going to jump in and talk about our Bowplar Legolas. Let's jump into the build here, and if you stick around after the build, we'll talk about, or I'll have some battleground footage kind of cut up for you so you can actually see the build in play. But let's jump into things. It's very important that you stick around during and after the build so we can kind of talk about how where Bowplar is at right now, okay? So, first things first, I have two separate builds for this, and you can just switch out one particular armor set, and that armor set is going to be Way of the Fire. And Way of the Fire, you can see it's got a 2-piece weapon or spell damage, 3-piece max stam, 4 pieces crit, and then 5. When you deal damage with a weapon, you deal an additional 4k flame damage. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon and or spell damage. And so Way of the Fire was actually really needed on a Bowplar. I have to work very hard for my burst on a Bowplar compared to all the other bow setups. So if you're looking at a bow necro like my Witcher, I've got a 15k blast bones that's going to hit people for 10k, 12k sometimes going out regularly. So there's a lot of burst built there. Plus it's smart damage as long as you're aiming in the general direction of somebody with your reticle, it's going to go to them most of the time, right? You also, like if you're on a warden and you're running deep fissure, you get major and minor breach, and that attack's going out, and that's going to be a 15k attack, 10k attack. It's going to hit really hard. It is a closer range. Like if you're playing Stamden, you need to play Stamdens at a closer range because your big part of your burst is going to be deep fissure. And if you're running a Nightblade, you've got a spec bow getting procced and ready to go, every 5 light attacks, and so, or a couple heavy attacks. And so spec bow, I think I have a 28k tooltip on that, and it's just absolutely nuking people. And so Nightblade bow play is in a lot better place. And bow sorks, really what kind of separates them is their speed, right? They have access to streak, and you could be running a multitude of different burst options with them between Haunting Curse. It's going to hit them twice for like 10 to 15k, and you can just run a lot of different bursty setups on Bowsork. Check out my Hanzo, and you can see how bursty that is. So in regard to that, I needed to run Way of Fire to get some extra damage on the class. It needs to also have a higher stamina. This is my sales pitch for Bowplar, right? Bowplar is not in a good place compared to all the other classes, and that's just a fact. I played around with it a lot, and I don't like where it's at. So needed Way of the Fire. But if you're wanting to run a Legolas and be more thematic, I would switch Way of Fire out for Sentry. And Sentry has max stam, max weapon, and spell damage crit. So the 1 through 4 are very similar to Way to Fire, but then the 5-piece, you get more weapon and spell damage, and when you begin to crouch, you gain stealth detection for 10 seconds. This effect can occur every 30 seconds. That stealth detection is for as far as you can see. Okay, it doesn't matter if they're hitting cloak, it doesn't matter if they have an invis pod, it doesn't matter if they're crouched, it doesn't matter if they're running in Vampire Stage 4, you will see them for that 10 seconds. And that's a lot of fun. Now, I can tell you Sentry in melee is bugged and still bugged, so what I mean by that is if you crouch and you see somebody and then you go up and you try and hit them with whatever melee attacks, it'll say they all miss. And it'll just be miss, 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 and they're just standing there flat-footed. But that's not the case from ranged attacks. So if you hit them with a lethal arrow or focused aim, magnum shot, whatever, all of those hit. And so running Sentry on bow setups is working really well right now. Sentry is more thematic to Legolas because he has amazing eyesight, right? And so if there were sneaky sneaky dudes around, Legolas would be able to sense them and see them and then dispatch them, okay? But Way of Fire was just needed, which is really sad. We should be able to play the game the way you want. While we can play the game the way we want, we're playing at a major disadvantage on this class trying to use bows right now, okay? When we look at the abilities too, we'll get into a couple things. But so Way of Fire is what I needed to run to get the burst that I needed to put people away, and Sentry is more thematic for the thing, okay? Right now I am running Baron Thirsk's Helm for more sustain. This play style requires a lot more stamina recoveries than the other classes as well. I really have to work for my kills on a Bowplar, and so I needed the extra recoveries. Normally I'll run a trainee, Helm of the Trainee, for more max health and try and get my health up over that burst threshold, but the recoveries was needed, okay? The next set that I'm running is Mechanical Acuity, and that's going to be a 2-piece max stam, 3-piece max mag, 4-piece weapon and spell damage, 5-piece when you do critical damage. This stacks Mechanical Acuity, and the nice thing about this is everybody kind of has a misconception on where Mechanical Acuity is at, except for the in-game PvPers. In-game PvPers understand how Mechanical Acuity is working right now and how that stacking works, but I have a base 30% crit right now. Just the first stack of this takes me to 50% crit chance. The second stack takes me to 70% crit chance. So while these stacks are building, I still have immense critical chance on this. And then obviously when I'm glowing blue and I have all my stacks going, it's a guaranteed critical strike. And so I needed to pair Way of Fire with Mechanical Acuity in that burst window, or the bow ultimate, to really make Bowplar kind of work for me, okay? Let's go through everything here real quick and you'll see what we got. I think we are 2 heavy and then the rest is medium, yeah. And I do have a hodgepodge of traits right now, okay? So Baron Thirsk, you can see our enchant on it is max health, just trying to get our max health up. When we dropped Armor of the Trainee and lost that 1500 health, I needed to run a health enchant on this. So that helps. Divines, okay. Well Fitted would probably be better, okay. Way of Fire, Reinforced, Well Fitted would probably be better. Reinforced isn't too bad. I'm trying to get my resistances up a little bit, and when we start talking about the pros and cons, which we already have a little bit about Bowplar, but when we're looking at the abilities and we start talking about pros and cons of it, lack of resistances is a thing. So unless you're running Nord, okay. You can see we're running Impen, and we have the Hakejo, the prismatic enchants on there, okay. Medium prismatic Impen, divines, and just max stam, and we did 22k max stams, a little bit on the low, and Mechanical Acuity, medium Impen, and Mechanical Acuity Well Fitted shoulders. You can see we're running Infused, Way of Fire, with the damage enchant. That's physical damage enchant, because you can see we've got the stamina recovery portion. Infused, Way of Fire there, and we are running Oaken Soul on this, and it's got just a ton of negative and minor buffs on it, and so that's nice. I am running Swift. We do need a little bit dash of additional speed on this, and so there's that. And we're running Way of Fire, Nirnhoned. You can run Sharpened here, but once you see the abilities, you'll see we've got access to Major and Minor Breach in our abilities, and so it came down to just driving up our weapon damage as high as we want. Now normally, if you're using a particular skill line with this, you would want to lean more into spell damage, and we'll talk about that, but because I'm not running that skill line, it wasn't needed. Also, I still have a lot of leveling to do on Legolas. I'm just not enjoying Bowplar, so we're going to... Legolas isn't sticking with us. If you've been a fan on the channel, Legolas is not sticking around. Bowplar is not easy to play. Okay, so let's look at the abilities here real quick. Actually, we'll look at the stats here. I'm going to pop a potion and we'll get... Okay, 1,500 mag recovery, almost 1,600. Stam recovers 2,300. I need more stam recovery in this. We do not sustain well. Weapon damage 5,500, 32% crit chance. Pin, we'll talk about that. And then 25k resistances, only 1,700 pin. Okay, here's all the buffs. You can see we are running Smoked Bear Haunch, and the Mundus that we're running is the Warrior for more weapon damage. Okay, I could switch this out to Serpent, but it was a struggle between I'm an advanced PvPer, I would say, and so I'll take less recoveries in order to try and get more damage on people. I could tell I was struggling burst wise on this compared to other bow classes, and so we needed to get more damage, and I'll just have to struggle through the sustain issues. Okay. The abilities. Okay. Right now I am running Focused Aim. This is going to be access to Minor Breach, and you can see that's a 10k damage burst on it. We are running Crushing Weapon, and Crushing Weapon has a 9400 tooltip, and it gives me Major Breach. So we have Major and Minor Breach between these two abilities. Now, this Crushing Weapon, a lot of people, like functionality wise, if you play a Stam Sork or a Bow Sork, it works similar to a Crystal Weapon in its thought process or design, right? But it is way more buggy than Crystal Weapon on a Bow Sork. And what I mean by that is it cancels itself, or it doesn't animation cancel, or it doesn't flow into the rotation as well. There are a lot of times where you trigger this, and as an example, if you watch the video at the end of this, the way the burst kind of lines up, right, is I channel a Focused Aim, and while that's channeling, I'll hold a heavy or medium attack. I'll release both of those at the same time, and then while they're en route, I will hit Crushing Weapon. Okay, and so what you're hoping to see is the Focused Aim, the heavy attack, the weapon enchant, the Way of Fire, and the Crushing Weapon all hitting at once. And I'm hoping to see all that hit at once while Mechanical Acuity's procced and they're all crits. Okay, that was the thought process behind it, but what ended up happening is the light attack and the Crushing Weapon weren't hitting at all. Like, the attack just simply isn't registering or isn't going out, and then you're not seeing the weapon enchant damage either. And so I end up burning through way more stamina just trying to get my burst to line up on this class than the other classes. So there's something wrong with this ability in the way it flows compared to a Crystal Weapon. You can watch my my Hanzo Stam Sork, Bow Sork video and watch how Crystal Weapon lines up with Mechanical Acuity, and everything flows a lot better, and very rarely do you get that. And so there is something wrong with this ability, and some people will say, well, I'd never have a problem with it. It might be the way. I'm happy for you, but for me, this ability is not working properly, okay, all the time. I would probably say 25% of the time this functions properly. The rest of the time it is not, okay? And that's sad. And then you will say, well, why would you even run that ability? Why not just get rid of it? Well, we need the access to Major Breach because our pin, our base pin is on the low, and I could switch my weapon out to Sharpened, and it'll give me 3,500 extra pen there, but Major Breach is 6k, so I'm like losing 3k pen, and then I'm also losing 15% weapon damage, and so this was optimized. I just need this to work properly. Okay, please work properly. Oh, all right. We are running Magnum Shot. This is our hard CC, and the damage on it isn't bad for a hard stun either. And so what I found is in those times where I try and line up that burst exactly like I said, right, with a heavy attack charging while the focus is going, and then in those times where Crushing Weapon and the light attack cancel itself, I just immediately go right into a light attack Magnum Shot, okay? And there's okay burst. That's not the big boy burst that I was wanting to put the person away, but it's enough to pressure them, okay? But through that process of did it work, did it not, now I need to go to my secondary plan B, right? And we're going to stun them anyways, but I need this to line up with this now. And so anyways, not a fan. But when you look at our class options and what we're going to line up, I can tell you this, that Radiant Destruction, Radiant Oppression, the other Execute, this is OP as can be. Look at the tooltip on this, and I haven't even leveled this yet. Like 13k magic damage. It's not very thematic for Legolas, and that's the only reason we're running it. Right? I am trying to make Legolas and run a thematic Legolas, but you could pretty much slap the Templar Execute on any class right now or any play style, and this thing is going to chunk them, you know, especially at the 50% health. And there are people running around in battlegrounds like 2 or 3 Templars together just spamming this at 100% health and killing people. It's not very balanced. It's very, very, very strong. Okay, so if I weren't trying to run thematic, we would probably you could get rid of your primary spammable. Look at this. It has a higher base tooltip at level 1 than my primary spammable, and this has a 0.8 second cast time. This is a 0.18, but it's doing damage the whole time, and so it's really, really nutty. Okay, so yeah, get rid of focused aim and just run around and run that, whatever. I tried to run Power of the Light. Power of the Light, there are too many problems with the delayed burst on it. Now you can say, well, it's got a delayed burst of the same delayed burst that say your Blast Bones has on a Bow Crow. It has the same delayed burst as your Deep Fissure on a Warden, but it doesn't really. The reason being is it can be cleansed. So if you just wait right before it pops on you and you cleanse it, they miss out on all the burst. They get the initial upfront damage from it, which is not very much. It's not enough to justify it. Now, where I do like Power of the Light or the other morph is if you're a shot caller and you're running a small group or a large group and you want to call out a target and you drop that on them and everybody knows to focus that guy. There's value there in just calling out a target. It's very easy to see the Power of the Light, the huge green spike coming down on him, right? And I did run back in the day Green Arrow Bowplar, and that was my first playthrough as a Bowplar, right, was Green Arrow. So Power of the Light is, you know, even in the times where Mechanical Acuity was procced and Power of the Light hit them, I just wasn't impressed with it. It did not feel like a 15k Blast Bones blowing someone's face off or a Deep Fissure destroying someone, okay? So, for me, anyways, but maybe you want that type of delayed burst. I don't know. It just wasn't working properly for me, okay? I can tell you though, if you're going to run this, you will get access to Illuminate. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability grants minor sorcery to you and your group, increasing your spell damage by 10%. It'll be in that moment if you're running Power of the Light or you're running the Execute, or if you're going to run Total Dark, that healing option in place of Breath of Life, a burst heal. Then in that case you're only going to have 2 hots on your Bowplar, and I wouldn't recommend it. You need this access to this burst heal. 2 hots on this class isn't going to keep you up under a lot of pressure. And because we're running Oaken Soul, I don't have a way to cleanse. I'm not running Mara's Balm. I don't have a way to cleanse the slows and things like that, so I find myself having to dodge roll, get that major expedition, and then line of sight a lot. So Bowplar is hard mode, specifically when you're trying to play it thematic as well. Okay, so I am running Resolving Vigor. It gives me access to Minor Resolve, which is almost 3k extra resistances and 21k heal. I can drive this up in my blue CP if you're running CP PvP at all. I'll show you where you drive up your Vigor. I think on one of my tunes I have like a 38k tooltip on my Vigor. That's on my Ghost of Sparta Kratos. So it's a very, very high Vigor tooltip, and but I'm not running that on Legolas, and we had to lean into damage. And then, like I said, Breath of Life, you can see the burst heal on it. It's a 14k burst heal. That's really nice. It heals a second target, which is nice. Pretty high mag cost on it, but it is my only magicka cost, and so I can basically throw these out pretty willy-nilly to top myself off or top my team off, and I like that a lot. I like Toxic Barrage. It has a very high tooltip. If they're running Mara's Balm, you're basically just going to heal them to full, and that is the negative. Mara's Balm is just really, really OP. It's strong even with it nerfed, and it makes it very hard. I know immediately when I'm fighting someone that's wearing Mara's Balm, because I can see their minimal effort to heal through your bolt, and like I can see them not having to hit class abilities to heal themselves, and I realize I'm literally just healing this guy. Okay, so particularly that second tooltip, right after dealing damage with the poison, the enemy deals an additional 37,000 poison damage over 8 seconds. That's healing them with Mara's Balm. And so now there is a chance that if Mechanical Acuity is procced and I get a full burst, proper burst rotation right into a Magnum shot, and I stun them, and Mechanical Acuity is going, that the burst, the direct damage, front end damage, the 76,000k tooltip will crush them. That damage, the 76,000 tooltip damage on this, is direct damage, not damage over time, and it won't proc Mara's Balm. And so if Mechanical Acuity is going, every one of those shots is going to be a critical hit. And if they're not holding block and they're not dodge rolling, and they think I've got Mara's Balm and I'm just going to heal through this burst damage, they'll find out that it's way more burst damage than they can handle. So if they're running Mara's Balm, there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to kill them or heal them. And that is terrible. All right, so there it is. That's the Oaken Soul Legolas with the class abilities. And I really don't need to run Illuminate at all because I'm not running any of these abilities. You can see how under-leveled we are. Look, not running any of these abilities. Don't even need this. When you activate an Adric Spear ability, I'm not running any Adric Spear ability, so you don't even need that. Okay, and get all these passives right there, and bow, get all of those passives, and then medium armor, you can see you'll want all of those passives, all the heavy armor passives. And I did get Psijic Order. I could level Psijic Order more, and there might be a little bit more extra damage from Spell Orb, but to be honest, I knew that Legolas is not going to be a keeper, especially on a Bowplar, because of how much I got to struggle to line up burst. If it were a keeper, I liked the way it felt, and I was like, we're going to keep him. I would level up Psijic Order more, but this thing is so much of a drag. I've literally at this point leveled Psijic Order 50 times, and you know, in some cases to get Accelerate or even to unlock Undo. And I'm just not going to do it on something that I'm not going to sit on and keep. So likewise, if you're running a lot of dungeons, my overall stats could get higher as I unlock Undaunted. And so statistically, I could look a little better on this, but it's just not worth the time and the effort. And you know, we might get more ult gen here. We might get longer reach and more recoveries, but not worth it. And we are running a Wood Elf, and Wood Elf is going to have more movement speed and more pin built into it, more stam recovery, max stam, and poison resistance. And that poison resistance is probably needed on this. What you'll find is, even though our Breath of Life is our burst heal and our only Magicka expense, you don't want to have to, you can get dotted down on this. And what I mean by that is, like, you run into a class that's just throwing a 5 or 6 dots on you, your vigor's not going to be able to keep up with it, and you're having to, and those dots are following you around, right? I can't cleanse them because I'm not running Mara's Balm, and I end up having to burn through my mag just to throw some burst heals on myself because I'm getting dotted up so much. And so if it's poison dot damage, that poison resistance helps a lot. So okay, so that's everything. Not really a fan of Bowplar. It is struggle street. It's hard mode and not fun. That's my best sales pitch for it. Okay, let's look at the CP. CP wise, you can see that we're running Steed's Blessing, 20% movement speed, Rationer, and Treasure Hunter, and we're running Sustained Shadows, reduce the cost of sneaking. I'm not a vampire on this. I would not run vampire on this at all. Because of the additional cost regular abilities, and I'm already struggling with sustain issues on it, and Vampire's going to allow me, I don't have access to Shadowy Disguise from a Nightblade. Vampire's going to allow me to crouch and go stealth and hide quicker, move around quicker in stealth, and that's just not value added for me in this play style. Untamed Aggression, 150 extra weapon and spell damage. Wrathful Strikes, 205 extra weapon and spell damage. Deadly Aim, 6% extra damage to single target attacks. We're completely single target attack on this, so if our burst lines up on people, they will feel it. Master at Arms, increase your damage down with direct damage attacks. Everything we do is direct damage attack except for our bow ult, the second paragraph, that 37k damage over time effect. So we do a lot of direct damage attacks. And in the red tree, we are running Fortified for more armor. I think it's needed. We are running Boundless Vitality for some extra health needed. We're running Celerity for an extra 10% movement speed, and we're running Rejuvenation for an extra 90 health, magic, and stamina. I think it was needed because the recovery on this doesn't seem to be enough. You can see that I really struggle to maintain my resources in outnumbered fights compared to my Hanzo or Dreadcaller on my Stamsorks, or my Witcher on my Bow Crow, or my Artemis on my Warden, or my Hachiman on my DK. So the bow builds on all the other classes seem to sustain better than this. Sorry, not a lot of positive things to say about Bowplar, but if you want to play Bowplar and you're struggling with it, maybe this will help you out a little bit, or maybe it'll help you decide to just put it on the shelf for the time being and play Bow something else for the time being. Maybe Bow Arcanist when that comes out. So, all right, enjoy the gameplay and be safe out there. Happy Easter. Bye.